All right, so I got I got the warning for the earthquake before it hit, which was crazy. All of a sudden, my phone blows off as like incoming earthquake, like duck and cover. And most of the time, like the earthquakes aren't that strong, right? But it actually flashed the strength of the earthquake on the screen, and it said it was going to be a 6.7. So if you don't know, 6.7 is pretty big. In 1994, that's a 6.7 is what like lowered all of LA, pretty much.
What? Sorry,
So
what CV is this?
That's sorry. Right? Only a 6.7? No. So I was like a little freaked out, and I was like, well, I'm upstairs. I'm not going to be able to run downstairs with that gnarly of an earthquake. And I'm like, I just stood over next to my huge monitor and held it. And I'm like, all right, I'm ready for this.
Use the monitor to shield your body.
It's actually big enough. You are that I could have done that.
and you got to. And while it's happening, you just scream, "No!"
Yeah. Oh, dude. I was like ready to run like the moment it stopped. But it was pretty cool that I actually got the message on my phone before it hit. That was the freaky part.
Do you remember that missile test from Hawaii a few years ago where it was like, this is not a drill. There's an incoming missile. It's like, what do you do? Be like, well, I guess this is the end. Like, dude, what am I going to do against a missile?
That was so like there's people literally like I didn't know which one of my children to go to get at a school before, and I'm like, boo, that would.
I mean, I would say save the monitor, worry about the kids later. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh man, goodness.
Why does this keep going down?
But yeah, the earthquake was only like
going, John? Welcome. We're live, by the way.
Hey.
Yeah.
Woo.
Just a little earthquake.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
I would show my background, but I'm actually in like a storage room.
But it also makes it look like you're the old man yelling at Cloud.
I'm okay with that.
Not me.
Although really,
that is perfect.
Wrong direction. And my camera's following me. Dang it.
Yeah, you can't get away.
Get away now.
There's no getting away.
How's my audio?
Sounds good.
Audio's good.
Sounds awesome.
It's good. Your camera's a little bit like this person tried to, or your camera's like this person tried to unlock your iPhone a little bit.
Yeah. Let me see if I can do this without crashing my system.
And he's gone.
No.
Oh, man.
Oh.
Ooh, there. Zoom out.
Blink. Okay, he blinked. Okay. He's still there. There he is. Yes.
How's that zoom? Is that a little better?
That looks good.
Yeah.
It's less this person tried to unlock your iPhone meme from 2016.
That's great. I've got the Camera Hub software, which works like a champ 50% of the time. The other 50% of the time, it completely seizes up my camera and like freezes my computer. But it's okay because I'm on a Mac, and you know, Macs, they just work, right?
That's right. That's right.
It's
That's
Magic.
the slogan.
Unless it tells you to restart it, like Microsoft.
You got to hit him with that link with the Macintosh. Got to hit him with the Macintosh.
Macintosh. Yes, that sounds... Dude, it sounds like you should have a monocle and a glass of wine. It's like in my house, we call it a Macintosh in my house.
So. With a little jazz playing in the background.
Yeah. Is that Kenny G? What the hell? That's the thing about jazz, man. That's one of the things I hate about jazz. Like, you know, if somebody's like, yeah, I like jazz, it's like flip a coin because it's either Kenny G or it's Cab Calloway, right?
Whoa. Neither of those are jazz.
Yeah, Cab blues.
That's my problem.
See He hates them all, and they're all jazz to him.
Okay, Kenny G is, I would define as easy listening. It's basically like elevator music. I not know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm okay with that. That's good.
Music. Yeah. Yep.
Not in a bad way. Sometimes I want to be in an elevator for like 8 hours.
Radis, I am not a Mac user. I use the pure BSD.
Have you seen his username?
Come on. Great question. Well, what's your operating system? But you know what? Radis is right. Like what's your TCP/IP stack, BSD?
I'm using pure FreeBSD 14.2 on a Lenovo.
Everyone, Mac, Linux, and BSD is using the NetBSD TCP/IP stack.
That is correct.
Yep. So
Where does that fall in the OSI model?
fuck you. Shit, are we live? Am I?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
are.
we're
Yeah, that was
We
weird.
I'm
We
paying
haven't
for
given
it.
any money.
See you
in
guys
a
later.
while.
Have a good one.
The Mario coins are ringing right now.
Oh.
Jar.
Since we're
Link, 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 link,
BFF,
link.
now we're moving on to funding CVE programs through Banter.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, no spoilers, John. Roll the finger.
Let's roll the finger. Smell the glove. Hello and welcome to another edition of Black Hills Information Security, talking about news. My name is John Strand. In this edition, we're going to be talking about how Chris Krebs is a hero. Not to mince any words, just jumping straight into that. Then we're going to move into the Sophos annual threat report, really nice little threat report. We're going to talk about how the CVE program funding is dead. No, wait, it's back on again. Then we're going to talk about how 4chan is dead. No, wait, it's still dead. And then an absolutely top-notch blog post from Unit 42 about how they were able to track adversaries and their antivirus and what they were doing and how they were trying to bypass stuff. Just really, really super cool, yet somewhat scary little report coming from Unit 42. But with that, I've got a huge group of people here. And out of all those stories, folks, which story do we want to start with? Because
We got to talk about the CVE thing. It's the thing.
Yeah.
It's the story
this
of the
is
day.
one of those rare things where something is such a big news story that my family members that have nothing to do with computer security
Or ask you about it?
asking me about it on Easter.
Wow.
They were
I,
like,
I thought you were gonna give an emergency newscast. I was like ready for it.
I was
Like,
too.
yeah.
Honestly, if we got in today and the funding did not go through, I would probably be doing an emergency newscast. And honestly, what the hell would we do if we lost full common vulnerabilities and exposure?
I was gonna ask you. You lived in the time before, right? Like,
Yeah, it was awesome. Everything was on packet
1999 and
security.
before.
We didn't even have
if
that
you wanted a
many DNS
vulnerability, you
names.
went to Packet Storm, you did a search, you found it, you exploited that thing, and then you were done for work for like a week. It was great. The before 4 times, son. They were awesome.
And then talked about it on Frack.
Yeah, and then we talk about it on
Oh my
Frack.
God. And then
Full
right up
disclosure, dude, the full disclosure mailing lists. Remember?
Yep.
Yep. You would go through. Mary Ellen, you were part of that generation too, and Luke. I don't know. But we would. That was it. That was the Trinity. It was Packet Storm Security. It was full disclosure. And then Frack would be the magazine that would have that. Sometimes Manuel Goldstein with 2600.
What about 2600? You got to write up your POC.
I was just saying that. But he was kind of weird. I don't know what actually happened with him. I heard all kinds of interesting rumors about him. And I don't know. That's what we did back in the day. And was that where we were going to head to if we lost CVEs?
Take it back
I
to
don't
Angel
know.
Fire.
I mean, I think of CVEs as it's like one of those things where like I wouldn't think about it until it was gone, and then I'd be like, "Uh-oh."
And it might take a while. You'd probably coast for a while.
Yeah, right? I mean, a lot of people were joking in the chat, like, "Oh, we don't need CVEs. Most things are misconfigurations and social engineering, right?" Which is kind of true, but also like we do need CVEs because fixing vulnerabilities is the only reason why social engineering works, because all the vulnerabilities are fixed. So like if social engineering is a fallback from just the days John's talking about where you just shell something out on the internet. Like it's, the olden days before patching and vulnerability management were real rough.
I like as a detection engineer, they're so vital. There recently, I forget what vulnerability came out, but a news source actually published before the CVEs were published, and we didn't have enough data to actually build out that detection or even trust that news source, right? So having the CVEs is one, a trusted news source that we can go to and verify that we all believe in, and the second is it just provides you that a little bit more information in order to protect yourself against it.
So yeah, John has a spreadsheet he wants.
Yeah, you know what's awesome? Spreadsheets, people. So this is the last 6 months at BHIS. This is by count. This isn't by severity, but these are the top number of vulnerabilities by count that we have discovered
from BHIS pen test reports.
Yeah, from standard pen testing, from standard straight up normal pen testing. And if you're looking at it, like we have server supports weak TLS. By the way, you might say that this is absolutely lame that it should be there, but remember it's required to be reported on for PCI level reports. But right there, number 2 is unpatched software.
Well,
right?
also there's tons of CVEs for number 1.
There's
probably like 30 of them.
Yeah. Then we have information leakage via third-party public breach. So Corey, no
CVEs for that one. Sorry.
Yeah. Unsupported software, number 4. Weak password policy. We got TLS SSL certificate errors, vulnerable and outdated components. So this gives you an idea of what we are actually seeing on the ground at BHIS. So yeah, those CVEs are kind of important, folks.
I mean, some of these don't have CVEs, but most of them do. So I did a little bit of deep diving before the show on just how the heck the CVE program even works. I think I'm more confused now than I was before. So does anyone know what the actual program cost was? It was $55 million. That's how much the contract was for.
Wow.
And part of me is like, okay, that does sound like a lot of money. But then I'm like, well, they probably have a ton of staff that are like validating these CVEs and like, I mean, their SQL
was that
database
55 a year?
I don't know. I think so.
I agree with you. That does seem like a lot. We're all like,
wait. Let's back up for a couple of seconds. Okay. So if you're trying to set this up like MITRE was doing, and I do know that MITRE was doing this, we can talk about the scoring of the CVEs, but a lot of what MITRE was doing was trying to validate those, right? You have a lot of vulnerabilities that are coming in. Yeah. There's a huge amount of triage that has to be done. Then you have to go through and you have to basically like test it and validate that that is in fact a vulnerability. Then they coordinate with the vendor. And I want you to think like every single time I mention a new thing, I am talking about a different group and a different flow chart of how that's actually done. Then you have to continuously monitor the existing CVEs to see if the scoring has to change due to different circumstances, right? So 55 million seems like a lot of money. Okay, it totally is a lot of money. But if you look at like the fact that it's bureaucracy, you look at it, it's bureaucracy interacting with commercial, and you look at the politics of it, Corey, think about every time we've tried to go to a vendor and have a conversation about a vulnerability we've discovered and what an absolute nightmare that is. And now multiply that by like 1,000. And I can kind of see why CVEs are that expensive to process.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's resources, a lot of resources. I mean, I will say there's also the National Vulnerability Database, but that is slower, right? Like there's like a lag time of up to 2 weeks for vulnerabilities being added to the NBD, which is, if you're trying to react quickly, which you kind of have to these days, you need something faster than 2 weeks later. Oops, you should have patched that before that ransomware threat actor found it.
Now,
2 weeks is a lifetime.
Let's get back to the question of the before 4 times. So do you think that exploit developers and people that are like writing exploits and loading it into, let's just say Metasploit and things like that, are they actually waiting for the CVEs? Or do you think that most of them are working like as soon as there's wind of a vulnerability, they're working to develop those vulnerabilities? That's what I'm confused about. Like, what is the chicken and the egg with CVEs versus exploits versus threat actors and how that's all in a like, are the CVEs coming after the threat actors are using them and these things have been discovered? Are they coming before? It seems like it's a mix to me. Like some of them are released. It's all the above.
Yeah.
Sometimes CVEs are going to be cut potentially years before a vulnerability is ever disclosed, right? Like,
Yeah.
they'll contact researchers who are doing responsible disclosure will contact MITRE way in advance and be like, hey, I found something, can you assign me a CV so I can report it to the vendor and like make it a real thing? Other times, I'm sure it's like, this has been observed in the wild, like the Log4j thing. It's like, oops,
Yeah.
we didn't get one in advance for that one.
That one got away.
Mhm.
Sorry.
And that kind of gets at like my separate rant, like when we're talking about MITRE and responsible disclosures and vulnerabilities and things that of ahead of time. Like I kind of want to go a little bit ranty on like this isn't how we responsibly disclose things. Like you get a MITRE notice that, hey, there could be a problem tomorrow. And what do you do instead of using all the back channels, the TLPs that we set up, all of the information sharing that we set up? No, you just drop it on social media in order to increase like your internet fame score. Because like through MITRE, and when we're talking about like how vulnerabilities are disclosed through MITRE, through some other sources, like I've known things that could potentially break tomorrow, and you go, okay, well, you need to keep this under wraps. Do I keep it under wraps, or do I do the security professional thing and go, you know what, I'm not going to keep this under wraps because YOLO and internet points. Let me go do this. Because if we had if your organization, let's say you were in a financial institution, you get hit with ransomware over the weekend. And there's rumor that, hey, a lot of these banks aren't going to open up on Monday unless we get this thing fixed. Do you go out on like Sunday or Saturday night, Sunday, and go, hey, I need to let the world know that all these bank branches might be closed on Monday. There may be a panic. There may be a run on these things. Do I add to the panic, or do I just sit there and go, what? Why don't I trust our engineers to actually get these backups up and running in time? And lo and behold, they get everything up and running on a Sunday afternoon. Bank branches are open Monday. Really, no disruption.
Well,
I think it depends on the person.
I think that's a huge thing, right? And I think one of the main things that you can look at is if you're an exploit dev or you're somebody that's doing vulnerability research, get out of your own ass. I think that there's a lot of vulnerability researchers that they look at the vulnerability that they've discovered or something like that, and they want to see something done immediately with it, and they hate the bureaucracy. And it's like, no, we've got to let everyone know about this right away. We've got to deal with this right away. And they pause, take a deep breath, and wait. That's one side of the spectrum, right? You don't want to rush this stuff, especially if it's going to lead to organizations and actual harm to individuals. And I've seen people that have done security research where they're basically like, no, full disclosure, immediate. And there is an advantage to that. If you release that vulnerability and you're going through coordinated disclosure, it can take months. And it is an incredible pain to do it. If you release it on Sunday, that thing will be patched on Monday or Tuesday, right? But there is going to be harm that comes from that. By the way, speaking of Palo Alto, we'll be talking about them here in a couple of seconds.
Well,
the question, the other side of the spectrum, the other side of the spectrum is we absolutely have situations where we have disclosed vulnerabilities to a vendor through a customer, and they're still not fixed. And BHIS has taken the policy of these particular vulnerabilities. If we're testing customer A and we find a vulnerability in vendor 1, 2, or 3, we leave it up to the customer to notify and coordinate that with the vendor. And the reason why we do that is because it's a huge time suck. It's a tremendous loss of money for us to try to coordinate that with the vendor. And honestly, we see our customers have much better success going to a vendor and saying, we're not going to spend money on your product, or I'm going to go to my local ISAC and I'm going to release this vulnerability publicly through my ISAC. It takes BHIS out of that particular context. So it's absolutely a pendulum. It's absolutely kind of like gradient of scale from one side to the other. But going back to a tester or a researcher, if you find a vulnerability, get out of your own ass, have conversations with numerous people, and don't be so hot to release the vulnerability that it has to get out there as quickly as possible. Be more like Dan Kaminsky, where you manage to piss off everybody in the process. Yeah. Because if you're making everyone mad, you're moving in the right direction.
I actually have how much it costs Black Hills. It's $55 million they lose.
It's about
every time.
$55 million. Dude,
Well,
I will take over the CVE program and I will run it for $20 million.
So
Call me.
Going down that hole with the CVE program itself, and now the new foundation that is spinning up to try and decentralize it. The $55 million is only 1 year's worth of budget. Can we get this whole thing decentralized, since so much uses it, besides the MITRE attack, besides your EDRs and a number of your other stuff that are using these CVEs as a way of giving you threat research and threat information?
Dude, there's another whole part of this, Mike.
Will it be able to go ahead and get spun up and decentralized within that sort of time frame before we're looking at this defunding again?
And there's a huge problem with that. It's not just the funding aspect of it, but it's also, there's a bottleneck there. No, there's a whole bunch of vulnerabilities that are not in the queue. I've talked to security researchers that are like, I've got a 0-day and I submitted it months and months and months ago. And because I'm not Microsoft and I'm not Google and I'm not a well-known security research group like Unit 42, my ticket for the vulnerability that I've discovered has gone to the bottom of the queue, and it's not being addressed because of bureaucratic overhead. So I agree.
But that's been true since 1999. That's always been the case.
It has been.
And again,
I guess, well, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was about to say, and again, that could be the slogan. If you're going to make everybody mad, you're moving in the right direction.
Yeah. And that's
there you go. That's the new slogan.
Tell you what, I thought about it. BHIS can piss off everybody for $20 million. That's the lowest I can go per year. We'll take this over. We'll make everyone mad in the process.
Oh, my God. Okay. I would basically say I think of CVEs kind of like the MITRE attack framework. Because they're great and they're useful, but they don't cover everything, and they never will. It's the same thing about, not every TTP is going to be covered in the MITRE attack framework. If you're a true novel new nation state adversary, you should be operating outside of the attack framework, because otherwise you're not doing too hot, right? So I think like CVEs aren't going to cover every vulnerability. They're not going to cover, like, there's no CVE for your employees nice and let someone into the building, right? Like, but I think it's also like kind of the currency of traditional vulnerabilities, of like end days or whatever you want to call them. Those, if there's no CVE, that doesn't mean it's unfixable, but it makes it a heck of a lot easier to fix. If there is a CVE, there is a patch, or there is a responsible disclosure like associated with it. Like it's a necessary service.
So Corey, think about it like this, right? And this is going to enrage you even more, right? CVEs are foundational for vulnerability analysis tools, right? As vulnerabilities are discovered, you have to set the CVE level, and you're going to set what is the remediation for PCI, right? So that's another layer that's on top of it. And I think that that's part of my frustration is CVE is the bedrock of kind of the mediocrity of computer security. Whereas you're basically saying, well, you got to fix everything with a CVE score of 7.2 or higher, right? Like, these are just arbitrary crap numbers that people pulled out of their ass for these things. And then they basically are building our vulnerability scanning, they're building our remediation plans and everything else on top of it. And while I think that that's stupid and we absolutely could be better at doing it, like Mike was talking about, let's open this up. Let's try to find a way to decentralize it. But at the exact same time, there's so much like process, and we want to have formulas, and we want to say these are the levels of vulnerabilities we're going to address first, and we're going to ignore anything with a score of 5 or lower. It's kind of like we need that mediocrity for a lot of organizations to even begin developing a functioning security program. And that's something that just burns me, is that's kind of the foundation for all of this stuff that becomes mediocre computer security all the way through.
Well, but you need mediocre computer security.
And I agree.
And also, you did kind of combine CVE and CVSS, which are technically two different things. But
yeah,
I mean, basically, I guess before we spin on this forever, that we're talking about an effort to decentralize this. Have there been steps taken to do that by certain people that might be in our community? And if so, what is that going to look like? What is the CVE Foundation? What is that?
Well, and for me, I'm just throwing poop at the wall. It's like, I don't like these things, and I honestly don't have a better solution for it. But it is something that's bothered me for a long time in my career.
Well, I would argue you do have a better solution for it. It's called pen testing. But anyway.
Yes. Oh, that's right. That's the company I have.
Yeah,
you should totally bring it up, because I'm totally not biased at all about that.
You did that thing where you were like, vulnerability scanning isn't everything. Maybe it doesn't tell you the full picture. Maybe you should get an expert to look at your CVEs and make a decision intelligently.
Yes, and I did in my rant conflate CVEs and CVSS scores. That's absolutely 100% correct. I did.
But they're all in the same. You basically have, like, if we're talking about, to use the term John coined, mediocre security baselining or whatever you want to call it. You have CVEs, which are the numbers assigned to specific vulnerabilities. You have CVSS scores, which is 0 through 10 rating of how much should you care about this. And then you also have there's a bunch of other components. You have the actual, what is it called? The number authority or whatever that assigns. There's like a whole list of things, but basically you have multiple components. And these, I want to be clear, this whole CVE world is extremely, the Brian Krebs article has a diagram of how vulnerabilities and CVEs work, which I can link here, but basically it's like, I mean, yeah, you can see this article or this diagram. It has, I found a vulnerability. Okay, so it goes to MITRE. MITRE's like, okay, maybe we'll assign a CVE number. Then it goes to the vendor. Then the vendors pick the numbers, by the way. Like Adobe or Microsoft picks the number. I mean, it's a huge group of companies and resources, and it's a really complicated system. But
it took me like 2 minutes to figure out just where we start on this map. That's how complicated it is. I was like, am I coming from the left, the right, and then?
Yeah, I was a CNA for like a year for a company, and saying it's complicated is an understatement. I believe like you get a block of numbers pre-assigned to you though. So they go, it's like, how many vulnerabilities do you anticipate having this year? And they kind of carve out that block for you, going, okay, whenever you have something that internally you're working on, you can just assign it to this number. So then when I can, got wind of, hey, there's a researcher that's reaching out to us here, we go, okay, all of that work, we're going to assign that to CVE 2025 whatever we were assigned, and we just cross that off the list and work on creating it. But
I've got a timely thing, Alex. Banjo Crashland, Joseph just came up with a t-shirt idea that says my CVSS score is 11. We need that shirt.
Yeah. It goes to 11.
Hey, and to add on it, you should put that on the front, and on the back it should say, "What's yours?"
Yeah, there you go.
And my experiences were how I came up with the kind of the phrase of like, I'm not here to call your baby ugly. I'm here to make sure the crib is safe. Because try going to engineers and arguing with them about like what the CVSS score should be. Like, how much risk is there in this little like granular area of the calculations? And they're like, see, I've been an engineer for longer than you've been alive. And I'm like, and this is when this comes up. I still need to release a CVE on.
Well, and that gets back to what Corey was talking about. We have these people all the time that are like, we need to get rid of pen testing as a field, right? We don't need pen testing, or we can completely automate pen testing. And I think that if we're looking at the top of that pyramid of SOC, right, you got CVE, CVSS score, vulnerability scores, you have all these things. And then you have companies out there that are like, well, we can just automate pen testing, because all we need to do is find the vulnerabilities with the CVSS scores, make sure that we have exploits for the ones that are available. We exploit those. And it's basically creating this like self-sniffing fart where we're watching, like we're trying to define the entire security vulnerability community with CVEs and CVSS scores. And that's like, if you're an idiot and you know nothing about computer security, it becomes really, really easy for you to say, well, these are the vulnerabilities we've got to fix. So if we just had a magical tool that could automatically exploit those vulnerabilities, that's a pen test. And I go back to like my chart, of some of the things that we've discovered. A lot of those don't have CVSS scores. They're not CVEs. They're just kind of vulnerabilities that the pen testing community finds out. So now I'm going to get an angry email from a bunch of AI automated pen testing. And I want you all to know, I love those emails. Please send them in, because I've got my own folder, and it's a dumpster fire folder. I'll put a dumpster fire on it. And sometimes when I go to bed and I worry about whether or not I've done the right thing in my life, I just go through that folder and I read it, and it helps me sleep like a baby at night.
Look at that.
So send me your hate. It helps me sleep.
So, okay, I have one joke, and then I do want to wrap up the CVE discussion. So my joke is, what is the CVE number for the DOS of the CVE system? Is there a CVE for that? Because apparently the U.S. government, a nation state, can just DOS the entire CVE system. That's a 10 critical CVSS, right?
Yeah, it's got to be a
Wait,
perfect
yeah.
10.
Should I report
Minimal
that? Should I
system down.
responsibly disclose that? Do we
You
think?
should. And let's see where it goes. If I'm looking at the chart, it will go nowhere.
bottom.
It'll go
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'll use my work email.
Yeah, be sure to do that, Corey. I appreciate it.
So let's talk real quick about the CVE Foundation, which I don't super understand exactly what this is. My understanding of the CVE Foundation is these are the people who care the most about this staying alive, right? Is that basically the goal of it? It's saying I'm a person and here's my name and I care and I want to keep CVEs alive. Is that the idea?
Yes.
From
And
what I understand,
this gets into Shecky's thing. Like, we're spending $55 million a year on this. And Mike, I want you to kind of speak to this a little bit more. This CVE stuff is foundational for every vulnerability scanner in the world. It's foundational for any of the attack surface management tools that are out there. If it went down, I would like to think that those vendors, including Microsoft, including Google, including Palo Alto, including Cisco, would step the hell up and help keep the program going.
the questions is, and you're probably right, because it would affect their bottom line in the long run. But with it affecting their bottom line, now all of a sudden, do you get a pay for CVE system inside of it? The foundation, from what I was understanding, is the board members that currently run the CVE for MITRE trying to take it out of government and into a private org that can go ahead and work with the government in MITRE. That way the budgeting for it gets completely removed out.
Wait, well, MITRE already is a private org, so
Is it private? I
Kind of
thought
like
it was
the
a
Fed.
private 1C3.
Kind of like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. They're kind of private organizations too, kind of.
Yeah. But going back to the idea of paying for CVEs, if me as a customer of XYZ VulnScan goes ahead and now has to pay for every single CVE, oh, you want the latest CVEs? We've got to go ahead and charge you for them.
Yeah,
Because we're taking
or
the
you
time
want
to
the
validate them.
up-to-date ones, like the most recent hot ones, like
Exactly. And then what about sharing between the different companies? Oh, this company's releasing this CV, but these companies can't go ahead and do it. You get into a complete and total mess if it becomes commercialized. Like
It's
Yeah,
gonna be
I
different
agree.
tiers and stuff.
what's that?
What?
It's gonna be different tiers of the
What-
packages.
Oh my god!
What's
Oh,
what's
yeah.
the paint? What's the paint company that owns all the paint codes? It's something with like a P.
you're talking about Pantone.
Pantone.
Mhm.
That's what I would imagine it would be like with CV. So Pantone owns like this color book, and it has codes for every single color, and then they also sell you the paint to match that color. So they send those out to people trying to make advertisements to match colors, but then they also send it out and sell it to the people who now have to make the paint. So they know exactly the right amount, right?
I
So
think we
they
need to
own
table
this
this.
entire system. I would imagine that's how like the CVE.
We
stuff
need to
would
table
be
this whole
somewhat.
conversation because people are going to listen to this
Oh yeah.
and not take any of these things as bad ideas. They're going to take notes and be like, "Wait a minute, hold on, we
I
can make
figured it
money
out."
off of this."
I mean, I've been joking for years that if you pay for a CVSS Plus subscription, you never get a full 10. So I mean, we can
and you know
monetize
that
those.
happened. I donated $5 million to CVE last year. I should get no tens at all.
All right, let's talk about. Anyone got a news article, or should I go to post something on 4chan?
I want to talk briefly about Chris Krebs. Like the dude had all the things happen against SentinelOne. He's resigned from SentinelOne to pull the heat off of his coworkers. I'm just gonna say, legend move. And I know that we're seeing articles and we're seeing people on Twitter saying, "Why aren't we standing up for MI? Well, this is awesome." I hate the fact that it has to happen, and we should never have a government go after an individual like this in the private sector and then go after the company. And part of me is frustrated with this because I have an email, which I'm not going to share, but it's like, notice to DOJ commercial vendors, court order regarding sections 135 of Executive Order 14263, adjusting the risks from specific company that we may or may not have done work with. And they're pushing that down to vendors to not work with these other corporations. And that is garbage. I don't want to spend too much time talking about it. This will just spin around and around and around. But God damn it, people. Chris Krebs is one of ours, right? He basically worked at CISA, worked at securing our infrastructure, lost his job over this, and now is being hounded by the government. We do need to stand up for Chris. So pretty please, if you're in a position where you can give some support, you absolutely should. Hey, let's talk about something else now.
Let's talk about 4chan.
4chan.
The attacker known as 4chan.
Yeah,
I will say
4chan. 4chan. Oh, that's a jump one. Okay.
Yeah. Well, so 4chan has been kind of under the radar, I feel like, for a long time. I mean, they had their run back. I grew up on the days of 4chan. That's where that was my internet era of just unfiltered, horrible things on the internet. Now we have like content moderation, which is much better.
Well,
but yeah, I mean, basically the article is that 4chan got hacked, which is like a big deal and a not really that big of a deal at the same time. If the data that gets disclosed is, IP addresses of posters, things that can de-anonymize posters, then it's going to be real bad, because 4chan has been the garbage disposal of the internet for many years. It's pseudo-anonymous. It's, anyone that's been there knows exactly what I'm talking about. But I guess the big thing is that it's changed ownership over a few years. And but yeah, I mean, basically it's been down since April 14th. So now that's almost a week.
So a couple of things like to learn from this is, if you're on something on the internet and it's like, it's anonymous, you have nothing to worry about. They might be lying about that. Or at worst, or just somebody just said, John Strand's about to say, we should stand up for 4chan. No, that's not what I'm going to say. But I think that people are a little bit smarter than they were a few years ago in the heyday of 4chan. Like, they now know that a lot of the stuff that you post on the internet is something that can come back to you. At least I hope that kids are getting smarter about those types of things. But I think that, is this really a surprise for a lot of people in the industry? I remember talking about what happens when 4chan gets hacked like 10 years ago, thinking it's just a matter of time. I don't know.
I mean, I would agree. I think it's not really that big of a deal. I mean, I don't think anyone is like, oh, this is a key thing for me. Without 4chan, where do I get my threat intel or whatever?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's
Reddit.
Just like
it's not like Reddit. That's
I will say, while we're here, let's throw in the fact that the new breach forums is also down. So lots of things are going down. So I mean, websites go down. 4chan, I will say though, to their credit, they have been one of the longest running websites out there. Considering the content, considering the people who post there, the content there, it has been one of the longest lived websites.
It's like the Rolling Stones of the internet. You've been expecting them to die since 1971.
100%.
They just keep going, right?
They keep firing up. Yeah, they keep firing back. So
yeah,
I guarantee it'll come back.
I think I did pick the year the bass player passed away, so probably a bad thing on my part.
So this isn't the Channel 4 British news station? 4chan? Channel 4?
Channel 4.
It was launched in 2003. So it's 21 years old. It's older than most of the interns at Black Hills InfoSec. Yeah. So that's pretty old.
It's same age as Blaster. If anybody remembers.
There you go, Blaster.
Yeah.
030.
Is that a coincidence?
Yes, yeah. Nice. This guy parties.
All right, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this Palo Alto article. I guess, Wade, did you take a look at this? Have you taken a look at this?
I have read no news for the past 3 weeks, so no.
I love this.
It's a pretty cool article.
Go ahead.
I mean, basically, it's kind of a, I guess I want to call it a mic drop. It's a little bit of a mic drop because it's basically Palo Alto, or I guess Unit 42. I don't know. I guess Unit 42 is funded by Palo Alto, but they're not the same, but they are the same. You know how big companies work. We don't know. Mm-hmm. Unit 42 was called in to do an incident response for a company. The client had been breached via an RMM tool called Atera. Now, the threat actor bought access to this company, and then they installed the Cortex XDR agent onto one of the compromised computers. I guess I guess they did this intentionally to basically test their bypass tools. So, we love testing.
When you're saying the attackers installed it.
Correct. Not the incident
Cortex.
responders.
Yeah, the
threat
attackers were
actors
testing.
Threat actors purchased access to a customer of Palo Alto maliciously. Then they installed Palo Alto products onto those compromised systems and started testing their own payloads and BYOVD, bring your own vulnerable driver techniques. If you keep scrolling in the blog, it just gets funnier and funnier. So, first of all, the name of the tool was just called disabler.exe.
Great name, by the way.
Which is a great name. It's using basically open source code from EDR Sandblast with minor modifications.
Well, they did strip out, that was interesting. They stripped out the command line options.
Which
Sandblast.
are the only IOCs, obviously.
Yeah, which I think that's literally what people were writing signatures on for, which is like really lazy IOC signature writing. But go ahead, keep going.
So the other thing that, this is old. Sorry, I just thought it was funny. Basically, the other thing that's hilarious is they got access to the threat actor's computer. So they actually, through this XDR that was deployed, they got access to their computer. And they pulled down all their files that were on the computer, which the attacker just copied their entire folder to the computer for some reason, and it included their names on it, like their usernames. And then they just went out and pulled the usernames from they were posting as themselves on these forums. It's just, I just thought it was hilarious hacker tears.
At first I thought maybe this was like epic tier trolling, right? Where like they installed it to test it. They're like, we're testing it. Of course it's going to get caught. That's how we're going to just make it disabler. But then once you said that they pulled their whole file with their names, I was like, all right, maybe not. This was just like some kid or someone just playing around. I was like, oh, did they install Cortex from the company they hacked, or was it
It was an older version of Cortex that they installed. It wasn't even up to date. It was like an old version of it just hanging out.
Yeah.
Because usually when you install those EDRs, right, you need an activation code. So that means they had a version of the EDR older and an activation code to activate it on the
I don't know if I was Cortex and every AV vendor out there, like, get rid of the activation codes. This could be very useful.
Right? I just wanted to call it out because it's
just
hilarious.
Kick open the door.
The threat model is so silly here. It's like, so you compromise a network, then you use it just to test EDR. Are you that desperate to test?
It's free infrastructure, right?
Yeah,
I guess it's free infrastructure.
We've got two examples of this at BHIS. Like one of them. Let's start with one of them. Let's start with CrowdStrike. Now, I was told by some people that worked at CrowdStrike, this may not be true. So, although I'm pretty sure it's true, that CrowdStrike found out, Corey, I don't know if you remember this, but they found out that one of the licenses that we were using that wasn't attributed to Black Hills Information Security was used by Black Hills Information Security. And there was the license that we were using to test bypasses around CrowdStrike. And they were literally monitoring everything we did. And as soon as a bypass worked, they would let that bypass continue to work, and then they would shut it down for all of their customers. So there was a period of time where it was like, so we'd test it, it would work, be just fine. We'd go to a customer, and then we'd get smoked immediately. I want to be blunt, not even mad. Like,
it's fair. It's fair play.
It's fair play.
Totally fair play.
And I was damn impressed by that. So if that is in fact true, which I'm pretty sure it is, at CrowdStrike, kudos CrowdStrike. That's amazing.
I think of this as in scope. If you're an EDR vendor and you can find what accounts we're using to test, then you can go ahead and just nuke those payloads. I will say, approach with caution because we can poison the well, right? And so can everyone else. But
But we've never had an EDR vendor poison the well and start deleting things like Chrome from customers.
Well, just rename Chrome to disabler.exe.
And you got to kind of cut it into smaller. There's more to it than that. But yes, basically.
Didn't
not
Checkpoint do something like this too? With
not
the
even
firewall?
that. And then the other story with this, this one pissed me off. Cylance. We did a series of blog posts on bypassing Cylance on Black Hills Information Security's blogs a long time ago. David Fletcher did this one. And after that whole entire thing happened, Cylance was able to look at the blogs, and they were able to look at the file names that we were using on the different days, and they were able to correlate back which customer of ours was the customer that we were doing the testing, because they had it set up. And the customer was like, go, this sounds like fun. And then they threatened legal action against the customer for that, which our customer was then like, ha ha ha, we have lots of attorneys, bring it. The customer was great. Loved that customer, had a great time. But at that point, roughly, I think it was CrowdStrike got busted for using VirusTotal and was pulling data back and forth. And Cylance came out and said, we don't ever pull any data from any of our user systems that could be then dumped on the internet. And I was like, no, Cylance, you totally did. They were tracking that as well. So this whole entire story is great because we've seen it at Black Hills Information Security. And once again, we've never gotten that mad whenever that happens to us. It's just like, c'est la vie. Like Corey said, it's part of the game that we're playing right now.
So you're saying the only reason we do pen testing is just so we can get access to our client environments and test a bunch of sick payloads?
Yes, only for the customers that are on board with that type of game, where they really, really enjoy that, because it helps them negotiate. It helps them negotiate the contract lower. Like we've had customers, Corey, where they're like, yeah, BHIS came in and found a bunch of bypass techniques. And, that was awesome because then when our contract came up, we could actually negotiate a cheaper price with the vendor that actually was cheaper than the cost of the service that we were doing. So, yeah, there's more to it for coming up with bypass techniques.
Don't try this at home.
Yeah.
Disclaimer. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the Sophos annual threat report.
Good report.
Is it?
What's Main Street? Does anyone... Like it. What's with the Main Street theme? Cybercrime.
They were talking about it in terms of the number of attacks that they've been seeing and watching are really kind of pivoting over to small to medium-sized businesses. And I actually think a lot of this has to do with the fact that Sophos is more so to do with the fact
only
that
their data
business is moving into this area for MDR MSSPs. Like you have SentinelOne is in that space. Sophos is starting to get some traction in that space as well. So I don't necessarily think that this is indicative of a trend across the industry. I just really think it's Sophos's view of the elephant as they're expanding into the SMB space a little bit more. But it's a nice write-up of the types of attacks that they're seeing, I think.
I also like how they call out where they got their data. They explain where they got it.
Yeah. And then nice write-up on what are the attack tools. What are the stealers? I didn't know there was this many stealers, Corey. Like, what is it?
I tried to explain it every news episode for the last 2 years. No,
but there's a lot of different names of stealers that I've never seen.
Oh, you're talking about like variants?
The variants of the stealers that are out there. No, you talk about stealers all the time.
I will not shut up about it.
Yeah, but there's a lot of different stealers that are out there. It's kind of crazy. I also like their non-ransom malware. If you scroll down to their top ransomware threats, about 3/4 of the way down, where it's like Web Shell, Cobalt Strike, called out by name is number 2. Red Team C2 tool with information stealing modules in it as well. So very cool. But then the other one was interesting is Chrome Loader. We've been talking on this show for a long time how the browser is the new endpoint, and starting to see Chrome Loader starting to move up that rank a little bit more was kind of cool. And then some other tools that we love at BHIS, like Brute Retell, is on there with I think about 1% usage. So just a nice little write up with good detail. So hats off to Sean Gallagher and Anna. For writing.
I want to light a fire here. I'm going to say this isn't a good report. This is a marketing report for you, and you red teamers are taking it that way. As a blue teamer, like as I'm looking at this report, right? Yeah, there's good stuff on malware. There's good stuff on different types of attacks, but the overall summarization of this report, as well as then providing like active, like TTPs or any
No,
type
yeah.
of quick
They don't
references
do
at the end,
anything.
right?
Oh.
Like this is a cool report, but it's not. As a blue teamer, I would look at this real quick and go completely to somewhere
Yeah,
else.
you need.
Well,
you need your
hold on,
SPIGs.
Yeah.
hold on.
Your
Read
SPIGs.
the conclusion, Wade. Okay, it says right here, migrate from passwords to passkeys. Did you not do that?
Done.
Come on.
Problem solved.
Yeah, I mean, okay, that is fair. I feel like they probably what happened internally is that they wrote a really cool blog with a bunch of IOCs, and then the marketing team was like, so you're just going to give these away for free? You can't do that. We're going to have to paywall these. And so that, I wouldn't blame the authors. I'm assuming that, but yeah, all of the like sections are followed up by, here's the product we have that's the silver bullet for this thing. And it's like, well, that's not really how it works, but
I
Just think, as a blue teamer, though, all we have to do is take each of those sections and go to the MITRE ATT&CK framework and look up the CVEs for each one.
He's learning to believe. He's learning to.
oh,
But for me, one of the things that I really like about it, Wade, is I agree with you. They're not like, here's a bunch of files where you can ingest this and you can start detecting these different attacks. But one of the things that I took away from this is a lot of the attacks they're seeing aren't rocket science. Like, they're not cutting edge, brand new malware that we've never seen.
PS exec is alive and well, Wade. How does that make you feel?
Yeah.
just let that sink in. 20% of all attacks use PS exec. How does that make you feel?
Yeah.
So
As a blue teamer, deep down, what do you feel?
I can't. You think I don't? Every single organization I've been in has had a PS exec detection, and knowing that I was protecting 20% of all attacks ever is makes me feel really good. So I guess it's reassuring.
Okay, next thing. Have you ever blocked AnyDesk in your environment? Because if so, you were blocked another 18% of attacks.
Oh,
Look
my
at me.
God. See, this is why I love this report, Wade. It's making
Maybe I look at this report and be like, look how much good I've done. Look how many attacks I've blocked.
Yeah, you blocked those 2 attacks alone is like 40%, dude. You are single-handedly
We're so
defending.
protected right now.
Okay, the other thing that I found really surprising is no quick assist on this list. No quick assist?
None.
Are you kidding me? Quick assist is like the peanut butter and jelly of hacking these days.
But it is 24. Maybe it's from the earlier part of the year.
Yeah,
I don't know.
2024.
We were using quick assist back in 23. It was installed by default.
I know, but no, I do kind of agree with that. Like, I always think that the people that are part of like the BHIS tribe of businesses in our Discord servers and our customers generally feel like we're at the tippy top of the spear on these things. And when I read these reports, I'm not like, a lot of our pen tests, we aren't using these things because our customers, these things wouldn't work on them at all. So it's like, why are we putting so much time and money coming up with new bypass techniques when all we really need to do is put time and money in marketing to lower tier customers? Like, can't we just go to customers and do you allow PS exec everywhere? You're one of our favorite customers at Black Hills Information.
Okay, no, John, what we could do is we could just have a discount that applies if you here's how a pen test costs $100,000. You can't afford it. However, if you use PS exec, do you have an EDR? You don't have an EDR, 50% discount right off the bat.
Yeah.
50%.
How low can you go,
I'll take that deal.
Cling.
Also, if you don't have EDR, that's 50%. If you use PS exec, that's another 5%. If you use AnyDesk, that's another 25%. You're down to like 30 grand.
I just know that I'm going to end up talking to Dave about this report, and we're going to be like, do you see this shit with your customers? He's going to be like, no, me neither. Who's testing these companies? And the answer to that question is nation state threat actors are.
No, these are syndicates. These are all crimeware syndicates. These are all crimeware syndicates. If you look at their number one campaign was Facebook phishing. Come on,
what
that's
the hell?
Gotta be
20% off if we can successfully Facebook phishing.
All this for $19.95.
Yeah.
Unclaimed money sites. Unclaimed money sites. I would claim it. I mean, I will say, John Strand, every time you text me and ask me to get more gift cards, I always do it.
Every time.
Keep doing that. Keep texting me and asking me.
In the middle of contract negotiations, I'll send you a text that says that you haven't paid your speeding ticket.
Okay. Yes.
And you need to. you know, the
Also,
traffic
John,
scam.
just as a warning, you didn't pay those tolls in a state you've never been to. So
That's
you might
right.
want
I
to.
didn't pay those tolls. And you fell for it another 10% off.
All right,
Lucky
all right.
you.
To go for the tolls thing, I actually sold a car, and they went into toll roads, and then the actual toll company called me, and they said because the car hadn't been officially removed from the DMV yet out of my name, that I owed the money on the toll roads. So when I got that toll phishing email, I'm like, there's no way that car is still in my name.
No, see, what you should have done is change your license plate to null, and then you get 50,000 unpaid tolls.
I love Christopher. Unclaimed money is something like $55 billion a year. Click here to find out how you can get your unclaimed money assets. So
Today.
And another 10% off. Like
Yay!
This is great. This is marketing. I hope Banjo Crashland is dying a little bit inside right now. He's just like, oh my God, this is what we're doing. This is what we
So during scoping, we just fish the customer, and if they click it, then they get half off.
Yeah, and at some point we just feel really, really, really bad. And honestly, we just show up and be like, oh, you're running on-prem Exchange? Yeah, this test is free. This one's on the house.
It goes below zero. At a certain point, we just pay you.
You take my money. Because, so we've got some interns we need trained up real fast.
I just hear the Price is Right music playing in the background as you're saying this.
Have a big wheel that spins around and the discount.
Like verbal agreements account, right? So I'm taking notes. So.
I'm totally going to get somebody who's going to call me on that, Luke. They're going to be like, well, John told us it was free if we do this.
I mean, there's got to be a discount for letting us tell your hilarious pen test stories on the news, right? There's got to be a discount for that.
That would be great if we could
like
do that.
war stories. That's got to, because, we're always got to be so tight-lipped.
But one of the things I talk about in my classes whenever I tell stories is I make it clear to everybody that I'm lying. Like if I'm talking about a DoD customer, it was probably a medical company. If it's a medical company, it was probably finance. If I say it was like a Fortune 50, it was maybe Fortune 100 or not even that. It could be a mom and pop bicycle shop. So I obfuscate the hell out of a lot of my stories, but the actual things that happened did. The really fun thing for me over the years is whenever I was teaching live, I would tell a story and I'd have like 3-4 customers in the audience while I was teaching. And at breaks, like all 3 of them for different companies would come up to me and be like, dude, why did you share that story about us? I'm like, no, Snowflake. You're not the only one that had that vulnerability. That's something that we see in a lot of companies. And they're like, oh, we thought it was just us. Nah.
Yeah, let me just dovetail off of that. So we're soon at some point going to have our own anti-SOC continuous pen testing version of the BHIS scene, and in that you might feel personally attacked if you're one of our customers. And I will guarantee you, any story in that zine has affected like 25% of the customers to make it into the zine. It was never just one customer.
There's always we put up that top 100 link, and I was presenting this to MSSPs on the cyber call last Friday, and part of me was like, I never ever want to report on these vulnerabilities ever again. Like there was like IPMI management interfaces being open. It's like that should not be a thing. Like what are some of the ones that are just really awful? SNMP default community strings. We're still finding that shouldn't exist. IPMI password hash disclosure, NTP mode 6 queries enabled. IKE aggressive internet key exchange, aggressive mode with pre-shared key, like 24. Like these are vulnerabilities we never want to report on again. Please make them go away. We're tired of reporting on these, but it's just something that just keeps showing up. PowerShell version 2.0 available. There you go, Wade. We still have that in some of our customers, right? So Corey's right. You have people that are like, are you talking about us? Yeah, but we're also talking about a huge percentage of the industry that still has these things floating around. Oh, default passwords. Yep, somebody just put in default
There's
passwords.
no CVE for that one.
No,
I think
but
there
there
is.
is a MITRE.
There is
technique.
a CVE.
There's no
55
CVE for
There's
default
there's
passwords.
CVEs for default passwords in specific products that show up, but I don't think there's an overall CVE for default.
There's going to be like 40,000 CVEs. Would you just list those in the table? Appendix A
Apache.
through 9999. CVEs
to
affecting
infinity.
default.
Apache, Tomcat, Root, Tor. Yeah.
CVE 000-P.
No, it would be 1999-0001. The first ever.
Oh, there we go.
CVE.
Nice. So, all right, everybody. I think that's a wrap. I just want to say thank you so much for attending. We do appreciate it. It was nice to be able to do a show and not teaching this week or like being on an airplane. It's nice to be a little bit more chill. But it was great having you all. I want to say thanks to all my hosts for showing up as you always do. And with that, we're going to be back here next week. We hope, maybe. I just got to keep looking for those DOJ emails. We'll see. But thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye-bye.